8:47 or 8:40. I think what we'll do is we'll kind of go back or regress kind of backwards, so that's around 50 minutes before Maghrib. So next week we'll start around 7:50 or so. And then once it's early enough, we can switch it back to after Maghrib, inshallah, afterwards, and that may be a better way to go. Because no one comes in the summer during before Maghrib in the masajid. I run halaqat in masajid for a very long time. In summer before Maghrib is a lost cause. People don't come and attend anything. Unless it's a scheduled hifz Quran like this, for example. They'll bring their kids, but for a lecture and stuff, people rarely ever show up. So you tend to kind of keep things after Maghrib. But Maghrib it gets too late sometimes. That's why we do it this way. Anyways, the last time, or the last session that we had, we completed or concluded talking about the battle of Khandaq, the battle of the trench. And it for sure was one of the turning points during the Prophet ﷺ's life, for sure, and the Sahaba as well. It's a moment where all of their fear, their weakness as a state, not as individuals, peaked, and it's where everything after started to turn upwards a bit. Things started to get a little bit better as time went on. Not immediately, as I'm going to demonstrate for you. It didn't happen immediately, but nonetheless, it was the last time they would be under such a horrific siege. It was the last time they would be existentially threatened by a foreign army. That never happened again. They did run into multitudes of struggles and troubles and difficulties that we will all, inshallah, go through over the next few months. But for sure, nothing was as bad as the day, as the battle of Al-Khandaq. This happened in the middle of the 5th year. So we have the rest of the 5th year of Hijrah and the 6th year of Hijrah that I want to talk about, because a lot of things happened during that year and a half. Similarly to the time between Uhud and Khandaq, around a year and a half, where a lot happened. And what happened was mostly the Muslims just undergoing, suffering from a lot of treason and betrayals and foreign threats from different directions. And I went through those stories. But for the next year and a half after Al-Khandaq, it's different. It wasn't that. That wasn't the case at all. It was actually, these are the years of social reform, as many scholars of Seerah call them. And what's meant by that is that these are the years where a lot of social teachings were sent through the Quran. Like a lot of the verses in the Quran that talk about akhlaq and adab and suluk were revealed, and a lot of mistakes, social mistakes and behaviors were highlighted and pointed out and corrected and dealt with. And I'm going to kind of go through a number of them with you over the next maybe week or two. Prior to getting to Sulh al-Hudaybiyah, which is the next big moment, is the Sulh al-Hudaybiyah. But in between, for the next year and a half, it was the rest of year 5 and all of year 6, it was just the Prophet ﷺ turning the lights internally and the magnifying glass within the community. Now that the threats from outside are not as problematic, they're not scared from Quraysh or any of the other tribes to raid Medina or to harm them. So they just focused internally. And focusing internally, you learn a lot of stuff that you don't want to learn. The moment you turn your headlights inwards, you start actually looking around, you won't like what you see. Most people avoid doing this. And within the tazkiyah sessions I've been running for the last number of months, talking about self-honesty and what that means, most people tend in their lives to avoid asking themselves big questions and facing their own realities and facing their own choices and facing who they are and what they've done in their lives, unfortunately. But there's no way to grow without that. There's really no way to grow as a human being or as a community without that. So once the Prophet ﷺ had the time, now he always did this, like throughout his life, and the Sahaba did as well. But this, within the year, what's left of year 5 and year 6, it became, this was the only focus. It was the only focus because there was no more, existential foreign threats that they had to deal with. So they got to focus on themselves and improving themselves and pointing out some of the social injustices and practices that needed to change. And it's just a very interesting, and probably the most important of all is going to be talking about hypocrisy, about nifaq, for sure. Which is why I'm going to talk a little bit about Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul and go through a few examples of what nifaq means and what it did. But really, this period of the Prophet ﷺ's life and of the Seerah, the social reform period, is where we get to learn by examples. The Sahaba got to learn about different ethics and different rules and different values and principles by examples, by mistakes that happened, and the Quran coming and highlighting them. Something would go wrong, the Quran would be revealed to talk about it. It didn't always happen that way. Like before, you have to understand that the Quran didn't always address every single problem that occurred. Some problems would occur and the Quran wouldn't address it because of the sensitivity of the time that they were in. They were dealing with war or but then everything that happened in year 5 and 6 was addressed by the Quran. Right? And I'm only going to be able to go through a few examples for you, or else this seerah will turn into another year, just kind of trying to cover them all. But a number of ethics, principles, and values were talked about and tackled within this period. Now, I think I talked about him a little bit before, but I do want to point him out one more time for you so that you have clarity on this gentleman. Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul was someone, he was an older gentleman, he was much older than the Prophet ﷺ, maybe by 2 decades or so. And he had quite the credit with his people. Like he was involved in a number of important moments or important events for Al-Ansar. He was a Khazraji man, he was from Al-Khazraj. But he had a lot of merit with not only his tribe, Al-Khazraj, but a lot of people from Al-Aws. And he had a lot of merit with the other tribes, the Jewish tribes that lived within Yathrib, within Medina. And during one of the famous Bu'ath, one of the very famous wars that occurred between Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj, it's Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul that figured out a way to end the war. And this was maybe a year before the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina. And during this period, people appreciated what this man did to the degree that they decided that they were going to give him status. Not any status. They decided that they wanted to make him king. Now the Arab, historically, have had different political positions that they offer and different names. So you're only a king if you are going to be ruling more than one tribe. You're only called a king if those who are going to be under you are people who are not necessarily directly related. And Abdullah ibn Ubay was being prepared to be given, they were actually preparing a crown for him, so that he would be the king of Al-Khazraj and Al-Aws and the tribes that were in Yathrib, which is a big deal. He was going to be granted sovereignty upon them. And then the Prophet ﷺ came to Yathrib. And a lot of the Khazraj and the Aws had believed in him and accepted him. And Mus'ab ibn Umayr had done years worth of work, and there was 100 or more Muslims. And then the immigration began, and then the constitution was written, and the people signed it, and the rug was pulled out from under his feet completely. He went from the prospects of a kingdom to just being a random guy. Someone who had, obviously he still had status as a leader of his tribe, for sure. He still had that respect. But what he was looking forward to getting in life, was taken away from him. Now I tell you this, and I'm careful with the way I tell you this, because what I'm trying to do to a certain degree is I want you to kind of understand how it is he became who he became. I think it's important. I really do. I think it's important that you are able to relate to why people do what they do. If I tell you about this gentleman, and the way I tell you this story is this guy was just the biggest he was just the most horrible, there is nothing, then you don't relate to the guy. You're like, evil. You demonize him, he's evil, everything about him is evil, and you just, you feel good about hating him. And you feel superior to hate him. That's really not how you're supposed to deal with life in general. Like, that's not a healthy thing to do within your life at all, ever. There's almost never a situation where doing that is healthy. And we know that because the Quran, when the Quran tells us stories of the people who made mistakes, the Quran never tells us a story that way. The Quran always tells us the humane part of the people who make the mistakes. Like, we hear the story of Iblis 7, 8 times in the Quran, because the Quran is trying to describe for us Iblis and how he was, so that we can understand, so we can relate, so we can see how we, as people, as human beings, could easily have fallen into the same trap that he fell into. He tells the story of Fir'aun many, many times in different ways, so that we are able to relate to Fir'aun. Not so that we become like Fir'aun, or that we decide that he's a good person, no, but so that we can understand how he became who he became, so we can avoid it. If you demonize someone, there's no lesson to be learned. There's nothing to learn if I just make him a demon, a horrible person, just horrible. These people are horrible people. They're just evil. Nothing is good about them. Now, there's nothing for you to learn. Khalas. You can't relate. You can't understand. You can't, khalas, you've lost. This is the point of no return, and this is where we start mistreating one another. And a lot of the problems, a lot of the struggles, a lot of the conflicts that exist in the world exist because of this. Because a group of people look at another group and say, this group needs to cease to exist. Everything about them is bad. They are just bad inside and out, and we need to get rid of them, right? We were seen as like that, as Muslims within the West for a very long time. The West, unfortunately, was not built on ethics and principles. I know that they think that they did, but they didn't. They really didn't. And it's not me speaking, saying that just as a Muslim, but no, even the sociologists who have since looked at the social construct of the Western society, that the Western society was not really built on ethics and principles. It was built on ideas. Some of these ideas had good merit to them, some of them did not, for sure. But not on ethics or values or principles that are set. And because of that, they always needed an enemy in order for them to keep their narrative running. In order for them to strengthen themselves and to work hard, they needed an enemy. So at the beginning, it was the indigenous people of the land. When that was done, it turned into it was the Russians, and then it was the Vietnamese, and then we came along. We're the perfect, you're a diverse group of brown people that spoke a language they didn't understand and had ideas that they didn't comprehend. We were a great target for it. We checked all the boxes for being a great target so we were seen as that, as a group of people that just are ridiculous. Everything about them is wrong. They should either become like us or cease to exist altogether. And of course, you had Israel inserted right in the middle of the heartland of of where we exist, which made it even easier to hate us, or even more needed. They needed to have that narrative. Now, things are changing a bit because more of us came and lived here. And more of us speak the other language. More of them are Muslim now. So now there's a conversation, and they're figuring out, they're not all, okay, this is not working anymore. Like this narrative, this demonization of this group of people is not working anymore. I guarantee you they're going to find another group to demonize. Like as time, they'll look for something else, like for sure, because they need it. As Muslims, we don't need that. We never did. We don't like making people demons, actually, because they are the target of our da'wah. We want them to become Muslim. We want them to bring their culture, the richness of their backgrounds to the deen and become a part of our Islam. And then we get to celebrate having them as a part of who we are. It's a beautiful part of being Muslim is how many different cultures are a part of Islam, and they bring the beautiful aspects of their culture to us, and we get to be a part of that and embrace it. So we don't need there to be an enemy. If there is an enemy, we don't back down, but we don't need there to be a narrative of an enemy. Only dictatorships and corrupt political systems require ongoing enemies to keep people scared, to keep them paying a lot of taxes, to keep them falling in line, to keep them from questioning mistakes, because we don't have time now to question the inner mistakes because we have an enemy that we have to all be united against. That is a very helpful narrative if you're a politician. It's beautiful because you don't have to worry anymore about answering why you made certain mistakes. And that's just the reality of the matter. I completely forgot why I went down this journey. Oh yes, we were talking about demonization. Don't demonize people, right? So Abdullah ibn Ubay bin Salul, I want you to understand him. He was this close to becoming king of the land, to uniting the city under his rule. And then Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam came in his mind, took it all away. Everything went away from him. So he had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder going along. And that's one of the reasons why he did what he did. I'm telling you this to understand that most people who make bad choices in their lives, those who decide to walk down the wrong path, don't do it without reason. Everyone has a reason for why they were likely or urged or encouraged or tempted to make this mistake. Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul had a lot of reasons to make this mistake. I'm not excusing him. I'm telling you the reason behind, not the excuse. The reasons why he did it. Understand that so that you can think, what if you were in his position? Would you have felt the same way? Would you have behaved the same way? Would you have been able to give up your ego and all that which you lost? You were this close. It was just, you could see the crown. You just needed a second to put it on your head and it's all gone. Are you able to get over that and look at haqq and accept that this man is actually bringing something that I don't have, and he's the real deal, and I'm going to follow him? Maybe, inshallah, you could, inshallah, but you don't know. Neither do I. I don't know. I don't know if I was in a position how I would have felt and what I would have done. But that's the important part of learning these stories. That you learn the story and you have to relate to the characters so that you can think, what would I have done if I was in his position? Would I have made the right choice or would I have made the wrong choice? And we pray to Allah that we would have made the right choices in our lives. That's what we pray for, but we don't know. There's no way for us to say for sure that would happen. Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, he accepted Islam openly, and he told his followers to do the same. But all of them were like, the moment we can get rid of him, we will. The moment we can get rid of him. He plotted against the Prophet ﷺ for years and years and years. For the 6 to 7 years that he and the Prophet ﷺ were in Medina together, he plotted against him hard. Many, many times. And a part of the stories are going to be what he did. It wasn't just him. It was obviously the posse that was with him. But he became known as the head of the munafiqeen. He represented for us something that is, I think, important for us to understand. He presented for us the concept of hypocrisy or nifaq. And what nifaq is when your personal interests outweigh for you doing the right thing or following the teachings or the legacy that you've accepted, where you continuously or you constantly or ongoingly will side on the side of your personal interest and not do the right thing. Right? And that's what Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul did. He didn't like Islam on the inside. He hated it on the inside, but showed that he liked it on the outside. This is the worst case of nifaq, where you just put on a show deep down inside, you absolutely... But it doesn't start that way. It can be on a much lower level. It can be something much more subtle, as the Prophet ﷺ would say, right? Ayatul munafiqi arba' or thalath, depending on the narration that you... يعني إذا خاصم فجر, إذا حدث كذب, إذا اؤتمن خان. You have all these signs. If he speaks, if there's a lie in it. If he is trusted with something, he's not trustworthy. If he gets into a fight, if there's a dispute with someone, then he will lose his ethics. He will do things that are... And the Prophet ﷺ would say, "Man kanat fihi khaslatun minhunna, kanat fihi khaslatun min al-nifaqi hatta yada'aha, wa in sama, wa salla, wa za'ama annahu Muslim." The hadith in Muslim and Nasa'i, where the Prophet ﷺ continues talking about nifaq. And I did a series on nifaq before, but just as a quick reminder, that he would say, if you have any of these traits still in you, then you have a trait of nifaq in you. And you continue to have that trait of nifaq in you until you get rid of that trait. Like you continue to have a portion of nifaq within you until you get rid of this trait. Even if you pray and you fast and you claim that you're Muslim, there's a portion of nifaq in this person until they get rid of this trait. It's a very scary thing, really. Right? And the munafiqeen, when they're talked about, إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ وَلَن تَجِدَ لَهُمْ نَصِيرًا. Indeed, the munafiqeen are in the lowest part of the worst part of Jahannam. Worse? That makes no sense, right? It should be the mushrikeen, the kuffar. No, it's the munafiqeen. It's not. It's someone who said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah in front of the Prophet ﷺ. Imagine that. Ever thought about that? The person in the lowest part of Jahannam is someone who stood in front of the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa annaka abduhu wa rasuluhu. If that doesn't scare you, then nothing will. If that doesn't freak you out, then nothing will. It wasn't Abu Jahl or Fir'aun. No. إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ. Al-Munafiqeen, the people, some of them who prayed with the Prophet ﷺ, sat with him right? They put the show on, but deep down inside it wasn't that. And obviously a spectrum of different levels of doing this. They're not all the same. But that's the problem with this issue. He plotted against the Prophet ﷺ when he got there. He plotted against him during the day of Uhud. He tried to assassinate the Prophet ﷺ. One of the stories that I have to tell you because I think it's the Prophet ﷺ would go around and he would visit the Sahaba. He would visit the underprivileged communities or neighborhoods in Yathrib often. He would go and he had a mule or a donkey. He had different animals and he named them all and he loved his animals. And he would take his mule or his donkey and he'd go and visit a group of people, take them some gifts. Talk to them about, he'd help them figure out what they need so he can help them change their situation. So he went one day and he was going by, he goes by the house of Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul. He's sitting in front of his home. And he says something to the Prophet ﷺ. You see, I want you to know that before Uhud, whenever he got on the minbar ﷺ, for Jumu'ah, imagine this, I get on Jumu'ah for the minbar to give the khutbah, and then some guy stands up in the middle of the masjid. And he turns to the people in the masjid and he said, Ya ibadallah. So this is what he would stand up and he'd say, oh, servants of Allah, هذا رسول الله, اسمعوه وأطيعوه واتقوا. He would stand and say, oh, servants of God, you must listen to this prophet. This is what he would do and the Prophet ﷺ would let him be, no problem. Why? Why, you ask? Well, because the Prophet ﷺ, unlike many of us, understood this guy's struggle. He knew that this man was this close to being king. He knew that there was something inside his heart. He knew that, ﷺ. And he showed him rahmah. So he always gave him, all right, you want some status, like some specific treatment? Go ahead. But after Uhud, after he kept 300 warriors back with him, from a third of the army was held back during the day of Uhud. That made a huge difference, obviously, in the outcome of the war. Once he stood up again, and the Prophet told him, sit down. Sit down, no more. I mean, you can't do that and get away with it. You can't decide in the middle of war that you're not going to participate anymore and hold back a third of my army and act like nothing happened. No, that's not going to happen. Because Abdullah ibn Ubay Salul was one of those guys who he did things, said things, and just act like it didn't go on. Like you would just show up there and say everything's fine. It was very, like after Uhud, you showed up, no problem. You're acting like there's nothing, nothing went on. You didn't keep back a third of the army in the beginning of the war. People like that are extremely annoying, but that's what he did. He just stood up to the Prophet ﷺ because he is one of the people of Medina, one of the leaders of Medina. He never turned this into a problem. He just let it be, for many reasons. So after Uhud, the Prophet ﷺ told him to sit down. After that, the gloves were off a bit. Abdullah ibn Ubay Salul became a little bit more aggressive in the way that he would speak about the Prophet ﷺ behind his back, or when there was nobody watching. So when he was coming by with his donkey ﷺ, and of course you're on an animal, so animals are hitting the ground, and some degree of maybe dust is being generated from this donkey as it's walking. It's just walking. The Prophet ﷺ gives salams to Abdullah ibn Ubay, and he tells him, هلا جلست في بيتك ولم تغشنا في ديارنا غبرت علينا. Can you not stay home? Can you not stay in your house and not come to our neighborhoods? And you filled us with, look at what you're doing, you and your donkey. It's disgusting. It's dusting, dust everywhere. Your donkey's poop. What is this? Why? Stay home. So one of the Sahaba said, Ya Abdullah, إنما أتى يستغفر لك. He only came with the intention of making istighfar for you. Like he's here he's not here to ask for anything. He's just yastaghfir lak. فقال لا أريد استغفار. I don't want his istighfar. He can keep it. He can do istighfar for himself. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course that didn't go well with the Sahaba who were with him. So it started to get a little bit tense. The Sahaba yelled at him, Aib, and you have no respect, what's wrong with you? And then the people who were with Abdullah ibn Ubay would yell back, and it got a little bit dicey. So the Prophet ﷺ said, قال لا, no more. And he went back. Like they were going to visit a group, he said, we're going back. So he takes everyone with him and he goes back. He doesn't want to. And they would say, Ya Rasulullah, هل أمرت فلانا يضرب عنقه. Why don't you have to give the command, the order for someone to get rid of this man. This is not to treat. فقال لا يقول أحد أن محمدا يقتل أصحابه. No one will ever say that Muhammad ibn Abdullah executed or removed any of his companions or anyone who was living with him. This will never happen. إنما يقول كلام. He's just saying words. Just let him say what he wants. I mean, we don't have to. Doesn't have to bother you. But this gentleman represented around 500 to 700 people living in Medina. That was the estimated number. Between 500 and 700 munafiqeen lived in the Prophet ﷺ's city. Think about that. That's a large, at the time, maybe 2,500 Muslims. Maybe. I'm being generous with my number, right? 2,500 Muslim, 500 of them are munafiqeen. And 20%. 20% at least, right? That is and that's being as conservative as possible. It's probably more than that. 20% of his society, alayhi salatu wasalam, were munafiqeen. So don't be too surprised. I'm pretty sure that percentage only grew over time. And in this reality that we're in today, it's probably something like that, even more. So don't be too surprised about how we are, because there's a lot of, the only difference is that back then, the Prophet ﷺ was good at keeping the munafiqeen in their places. And after he passed away, he had Hudayfa to do the same. So they didn't run for office. They did not sit in places where they had authority, where they could make decisions, where they affected the narrative, where they affected mindsets. They weren't allowed to do that. Today, they're everywhere, so we don't know. And really, again, the concept of nifaq is for you and I to be fearful that we are a part of that. Like really, the whole point of learning about nifaq is that you live your life with some degree of healthy fearfulness that you may be amongst that group, that you're living a lifestyle that does not qualify you to be called anything else. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us all. And Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab, that's how he lived his life, as we know. That fearfulness of him being amongst the munafiqeen, even though obviously he wasn't, but that was his fear. Constantly hounding Hudayfa, asking him, أعدني رسول الله. The Prophet said, count me amongst the, am I on that list that you got? Yeah, the list that you got the list, no one else has the list. Who's on that list, Hudayfa? And he was like, no, this is a sirr, I can't tell you. You'll only know when they die, because he wouldn't go for janazah, Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman. So you would know, oh, that guy's, Hudayfa would be available for the janazah and say no. And another reason that he had this list, Sayyidina Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, is because all the munafiqeen knew that Hudayfa knew about them. So they couldn't run for anything. They couldn't come out and be asked to become a leader or a war commander or a consultant or anything, because Hudayfa would come and say, what are you doing? Get back. So he would expose them. So it was like he was this safety valve that kept the munafiqeen quiet, because he knew their names. Like, I was given your names by the Prophet ﷺ. Don't make a move. Don't even flinch. Just exist and enjoy the fact that you're around. So he served that purpose, radiallahu anhu. But there was a reason why he did not expose them. Because you may say, well, why not just expose them and get rid of them? No, that's not a part of what's allowed. We're not here to judge people's inner beliefs and their personal choices and how they deal with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and follow the deen. That's not up to me. If you say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, you're a part of my jama'ah. You're a part of the Muslim ummah, and then we will treat you as such. Whether you decide to carry your weight within the group or not carry your weight is up to you. But it's not my job to expose the inner intricacies of who you are. And it's not my job. You can never use the word nifaq upon people, by the way. This is another problem. We use the word, fulan munafiq. Be very careful. This is a very dangerous word. Kafir is an easier word, especially if the person is saying, I'm not Muslim. Kafir is not really a curse word. Are you Muslim or are you not? No, then you're kafir. I don't hate you, it's just you're kafir. Because you're not Muslim. Just like I'm kafir to you. Like whatever you believe in, I'm a kafir to you because I don't believe what you believe in. It's just a distinction in terms of belief. Nifaq is a problem. Nifaq is the gray zone, the people who are acting like they're a part of something, but they're not. They're reaping the benefits, but they're not carrying their weight. Like they're not doing the job. They're not helping us. They're just taking what they can, just belonging to the group, making us seem more than we are, when really we're much less than that because of the fact that they're not doing their jobs. So the Prophet ﷺ wanted to deal with this. He wanted to make it better. So there was a small battle that was called the Battle of Banu al-Mustaliq. Banu al-Mustaliq is a small tribe that really wasn't much of a threat. They were just a tribe that was making some noise. They're making noise against the Muslims. But they were very small. Usually the Prophet ﷺ ignores these things. He always did. But strategically, he decided, you know what, we go out for them. First of all, it shows Arabia that we are not afraid, that we're coming up the ladder, and we're on the radar of everybody. And he wanted an opportunity to bring the Muslims together again. Like after what happened on the day of Khandaq, after a lot of the munafiqeen showed their true colors during the Battle of the Trench, a lot of things, people said stuff. Right? We recited the verses last week. إِذْ يَقُولُ الْمُنَافِقُونَ وَالَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِم مَرَضٌ مَا وَعَدَنَا اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ إِلَّا غُرُورًا. And when the munafiqeen and the people who have disease in their heart, they said, all that Allah and His Prophet have promised us is just a lie. It's all a delusion. It's all an illusion. وإذ قالت طائفة منهم يا أهل يثرب لا مقام لكم فارجعوا ويستأذن فريق منهم النبي يقولون إن بيوتنا عورة وما هي بعورة إن يريدون إلا فرارا. And then some of them start telling the people, the guys on the trench, the Sahaba, go back to your homes. There's no reason for you to be here anymore. Soon, Quraysh and the Banu Qurayza are going to come in, and we're going to be between طرفي كماشة. We're going to be squished from both sides, and if you're in your house with your family, maybe you make it. What are you doing here? And then some of them would go to the Prophet and say, Rasulullah, let us go home. Our houses are exposed. And Allah says, and their houses were not exposed. They just wanted to run and flee. Now the guys who asked the Prophet ﷺ for permission and said this, they knew who they are. The Sahaba know who they are. The Quran doesn't expose them to us, so we don't know their names, but everyone knew. You're the guy who asked these questions. And these questions are now documented in the Quran as one of the actions of the munafiqeen. So some people were exposed. The Prophet ﷺ wanted to offer opportunity for repentance. So he saw the opportunity of Banu al-Mustaliq. He said, you know what, we go out, we take the army, we take 1,500 people, the guys. We put on a little bit of a show of strength in the region, because you're trying to also keep enemies far. And it gives time for the Muslims to bond, because there's not going to be a war. He knew that, and there wasn't. They got there was no one. Banu al-Mustaliq heard the Muslims moved, they changed their area of residence altogether. They got up and they went down south of Mecca. They went down like 400 kilometers to stay away. So it was all just they were just making noise uselessly. But the Prophet ﷺ did this with that intention of kind of building something and giving the munafiqeen an opportunity to repent, like to show that we went with the Prophet ﷺ. We went on a battle with him. They can say that now. We were with him during the battle. It was nothing. There was no war, but we went with him. We were there, and we came back, and we followed orders and commands. So he's giving them an opportunity. Now, unfortunately, that didn't all work that way. Well, it did until maybe the last night on the way back, where, subhanAllah, you can't lie about who you are forever. Like, people's true colors will shine at some point. What you really have on the inside at some point will come out. So be careful. Figure out who you are. Figure out the stuff that you have on the inside. Change what needs to be changed. So that whatever point in your life when that's going to be exposed is good. It's khair. It's not something that's going to be disappointing to you and the people around you. And it's a scary thought, wallah. So on the way back, the night probably before, they usually when you're going on far distances, you know where to stop for water. So you fill up accordingly to how much water you're going to need from one stop to the other. On the way back, one of the stations where they filled up water was empty. Like there was no water in it. And they had not, there was water on the way there, just not on the way back. And they weren't prepared for that. So that meant they had to walk for an extra day or longer before they could come to a place or find a place where there's water. So you can imagine, that now they're walking throughout the night, they're not camping as they should. So people are cranky, they're tired, and they're thirsty. They come to the place where they're going to fill up with water. At that point, they're a day and a half late on filling up their water bottles or whatever they used, and people weren't in a good mood. So they come to the well and they're filling up, and there's a little bit of pushing and shoving from some of the younger guys. Some of the younger guys, obviously, if you're going on a battle, and there's the big fat guys, and then there's the younger guys. I'm going to see one of the younger guys. Hey, Taha, fill up some water for us. Hadir Sheikh, he'll go fill up the water. He's a nice boy. He'll go fill up the water. And then someone else, same thing from the other group, go fill up the water. Now Taha and the other kid over there, they come together. Maybe there's a push and shove. They told me to fill up water before. So there's a little bit of a dispute at the well amongst little kids. So what happens, instead of everyone intervening and kind of ending the dispute, it grew. He calls me, because I sent him, so I come along. And then the other guy calls him, and then we fight. So two people struck each other. And then something was said that has never been said publicly during the Prophet ﷺ's life. Now, it's always existed. It's interesting to me, actually, that this is the first time it was ever said. It's actually amazing. It's the first time it's ever said. You have to understand that Yathrib is to a certain degree, prior to the Prophet ﷺ coming, was a homogeneous area. Aside from the Jewish tribes that resided there, you had Al-Khazraj and Al-Aus, two cousin tribes. Yes, they're at each other's throats and have been for many decades, almost a century or more. But they were relatives. At the end, they're relatives. Ulad Am, they're all from the same background. When the Prophet ﷺ came, his presence brought forward a new demographic, like change in demographics. Now you had the Muslims amongst the two tribes. You had the kuffar, mushrikeen amongst the two tribes. You had the munafiqeen amongst the two tribes, which is even worse. And you have the Jewish tribes. And you have the muhajirin. You have the people who have immigrated to Medina. And they were very different. Not all of them were from Quraysh. Bilal al-Habashi is not from Quraysh. Suhaib al-Rumi, not from Quraysh. Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, Abu Hurayra, these are not from Quraysh. These are people who came. They're just not from Muhajir, was just anyone who wasn't from Medina. Anyone who wasn't Khazraji Ansari. Those were the Muhajirin. So they came from all over the place. So even the Muhajirin were a heterogeneous group. Like they were very diverse, a group that had a lot of different components within them. But you can imagine that now, within this city, there were the indigenous and the immigrants. As every other country, no difference, right? All you have to do is push them far enough and they'll say something about go back from wherever you came from. Like all you have to do is just push them just hard enough. Just do something obnoxious enough and they'll throw it out. They can't help it. And I don't blame them, honestly. I think if I was sitting in my village in Syria and you came to my village and you started to misbehave, and I would tell you to go back from where you came from too. It's a very humane thing to do. It's a human thing. It's not a good thing. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not defending this. I'm saying it's a very human reaction. It's like you live in this city. It's been the city of your ancestors for a long time. People come in, they don't behave, or they cause problems. There's this urge to say, get out. Or, there's us, the people who have always been here. We hate each other, but we've always been here. Whatever, for what it's worth, at least we've always been here. Then these guys, who should never came here. The Prophet ﷺ did mu'akha, if you remember. Remember, he actually put them in each other's homes, which is mind-blowing. But you have to understand that narrative was there for sure. 100% people under their breaths were saying, when are these guys going to leave? We have to get rid of them. We can't have these people here forever. This is our city. That urge was there. But no one said it out loud. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ was able to remove that. He was able to actually unite people and bring their hearts together. But the munafiqeen, they lived on this. This was their main narrative. Their main narrative was, we need to get rid of them. They have to leave. They can't be here forever. Our city's not big enough. They're taking all of our jobs. They're like whatever it is that they said back then. That is equivalent to what we say here today, with very little differences. So the two guys who fought, one said, Ya al-Muhajirin. And the other guy said, Ya al-Ansar. So they called upon their tribes, quote unquote. And now the Ansar, Khazraj and Aus, even though they don't like each other, are coming together to see what these immigrants are doing. And the immigrants are coming to see what these indigenous guys are doing. And they're sizing each other up over a well on the way back from a battle. He would come out, alayhi salatu wasalam, not even fully dressed. He would run out of his tent, alayhi salatu wasalam, without a shirt on. And he didn't even wait for Aisha to find, whoever was with him, to find him something to cover himself. He came running out, alayhi salatu wasalam, pushing people back, saying, Abi da'wa al-jahiliyyah, wa ana bayna dhahranikum lam amut. Are you actually saying these jahili slurs, these slurs from jahiliyyah, and I'm still amongst you? I haven't died yet. I am not dead yet. I'm still here. You guys you're seriously going to start going back to the Jahiliyyah slurs, and I'm still here amongst you. Meaning, what he's saying is, I've been teaching you for years now that this is not a way to go. You don't look at people that way. You don't generalize upon people that way. You don't allow yourself to look at us and them and make that distinction and call them names and brew hatred and animosity out of nothing. He was teaching them this for a very long time, alayhi salatu wasalam. And then they said, Muhajirin, Ansar, and they were getting upset. I understand, they're cranky, they're tired, they're thirsty, it's been a long time, there's a little bit of bad blood there from the beginning. Munafiqeen can't wait. They want this to happen, they want this finally to come out. He comes running out. Abi da'wa al-jahiliyyah, the jahiliyyah slurs, you're allowing that to happen, and I'm still here amongst you, I haven't died yet. Da'uha, leave this, meaning do not, فَإِنَّهَا مُنْتِنَةٌ. And natan in Arabic is rot. Is when something is covered in rot, it becomes rotten. You ever see a rotten egg, for example? One of the worst things you'll run into in your life is something that has gone rotten, actually rotten. It is a stench that will stay in your nose, wallahi, for months. Like if you smell something that's truly rotten, and I grew up in a village, so I know rotten. And it can literally open up parts of your brain that you didn't know existed, and it can make you feel that it can blind you. The stench can be so bad it can wallahi hurt your eyes. So the word muntin in Arabic is not that it's rotten, it is so rotten that it causes rot. Like the level of rotten here is not that it's just rotten in its own sense. It's so rotten that it's going to make everything else rotten too. So da'uha, leave this. Leave these slurs. فَإِنَّهَا مُنْتِنَةٌ, because it is disgusting. This is rot. This is disgusting. How dare you say this? How dare you say, Ya al-muhajirin, Ya al-ansar? What's wrong with you? It's very rare that he gets upset, alayhi salatu wasalam, right? It's not often. Study the Seerah. You'll find that you'll count them on two hands. The times the Prophet ﷺ he becomes very stern with his Sahaba. It's not within this year and a half, year 5 and 6. It's going to happen 3, 4, 5 times. Like half of them happen. Why? Because these are the year where he focuses internally, where the headlights are brought down and to look inside the society. What are people doing? We need that, wallah, today. We need that. We just don't have Rasulullah alayhi sallam amongst us to fix it. We're just lacking. We need to focus internally on who we are and how we are and what problems we have and how we're behaving and what needs to change. See, they were a little bit more invasive back then than they are now. We're a little bit too Canadian for our own good right now. We're a little too. What do you mean by that? We're a bit like my space, my personal space. Don't ask me. Muslims are a little bit more invasive than that. Like, I am, to a certain degree, obligated to come and say, hey, why aren't you coming and praying? Oh, Sheikh, no, what are you, Sheikh? Ta'al. Where you go? Why aren't you here? Oh, I'm busy. No, what do you mean you're busy? How are you busy? Explain, what are you doing? And then at that moment, the person gets a little bit defensive. Well, it's none of you. No, it is my business. You're a Muslim, you should be here. Explain where you are. No, it's none of your business. Yeah, that's the Western part of you coming out. The Muslim part is not that like. The Muslim part, you are obligated to explain where you've been. You are obligated to explain why you're not here, why you're not a part of anything, why you're not participating. You're obligated. And you say you don't want to, then next when you die, make sure you go find a different maqbara to be buried in. And when you want to get married, make sure you go marry some other community because we won't give you our daughters. You're like, oh, that feels... No, it's not offensive and it's not meant to be disrespectful. It's meant to help people when they go astray or they lose focus to be brought back into the group again. The Prophet ﷺ, this is a part of the deen. He would address these things directly, and he would point out the mistake, and he would correct it, and he would require you to correct it as well. You're a part of our ummah. You want to be a part of his ummah, alayhi salatu wasalam. You want him, when he says ummati, ummati, for you to be included in that call. You want to make sure you get that shafa'ah, you enter Jannah. Then you have to be held accountable to the values and the principles that this ummah was built upon. And we have lost that a long time ago. That doesn't exist anymore. Hopefully, inshallah, it'll start coming back, but we're not there yet. We're not even. There has to be that accountability. How do I know? Like, are masajid just open for unconditional service to everyone who comes in? Is that how they're supposed to run? Like, is the masjid just open, unconditional service to anyone who comes in? And if that is the case, then how do I build anything? How do I start anything? How do I actually move forward with knowledge or with community service or work if I can't hold anyone accountable for anything? Right? If myself and the people who work with me can't hold anyone, any part of the congregation, accountable for anything, we can't be involved in anything, then what exactly is it? What is this relationship? You just come and we just serve and that's it? But what about you? Are you not going to be held to be served? Right now, we're dependent 100% on the kindness of the hearts of the people coming in here. That's it. There's no authority, there's no autonomy. I didn't grow up that way, by the way. I didn't dare. To this day, there's a few of my shuyukh I'm scared of. And if they were to tell me to do something, I was going to do it, whether I liked it or not. This was not something negotiable. If I was needed for something or he called me for something, I was going to be there. If that meant I needed to drop out of school, I did. There was a certain degree of accountability that existed, understanding that we're a part, that there's certain responsibilities that we share as a group. Right now, we run this community purely on the good kindness of hearts of the people who walk in here because we have no authority over anything. We're held to standards, and you guys don't mind holding me to standards. You wouldn't be too thrilled if you came for Jummah and I didn't show up. You wouldn't be too thrilled if you came and there was no one taking out care of the parking. You expect certain things, right? You have the right to. I think it's reasonable. You come to a masjid, you expect certain things. You expect us to have programming. You expect us to vet out the people who are running the program. You expect us to look into the content, and which we do. Right? What do I expect from you? What am I allowed to expect from you? To grace me with attending this stuff? Oh, please, thank you. Oh, if you didn't attend, I would have. What exactly am I getting out of this? It's easier to talk to an empty room. There's less there's less feelings to worry about. What do we get? Where's the accountability? Where's the two-way road here? It feels very much like a one-way road. It's a one-way. It's just one-way traffic. You just give. Okay, what do I get back? I don't want anything from me. You know, I don't want your money. I don't want your attention either. But where is your commitment to the work that's happening? Where is your accountability to the improvement, to the progress, to things moving forward, to the contribution, to the participation? Where is that? And how do I follow that? And how are you held accountable for that? And if there is nothing, then based on what are we going to be held accountable to any of you? Is it purely money? Is that why? Is it because we take a little bit of money out of our pockets and we put it in, so now somehow you're entitled for everything to run perfectly? Doesn't sound very... if that's the case, then you have to be accountable to the amount of money that you pay. Right? You have to give up 10% of your... No, and I don't think that's the case. I'm not arguing that should be the case. I'm just saying, what is this relationship based upon? The Prophet ﷺ, it was clear. He was there to teach them and take care of them, and he did. But they were accountable to his teachings, alayhi salatu wasalam. There was accountability. So when needed, he would come in, he would point out, this is disgusting, don't do this again. So they all stood back. And they all had to repent from this racism that they showed. From this racism that we show. We are, with our community today, filled with racism. We have more of it than we're willing to admit, unfortunately. We have more of it than we're willing to admit. How do we fix it? How do we fix it? If there's no accountability of any sort, then how do we fix this? How do we actually transition from having racism towards different groups or gender-based racism or wealth-based racism? How do we go from that to something that is healthy, that doesn't have that in? I don't know. And the reason that I think the problem is that there's no way for us to hold anyone accountable. It's just, and you are living a very easy Muslim existence where you show up whenever you want, you follow whatever you want, and you do whatever you want. And there's no accountability. I'm turning it on you, khalas. I'm throwing this problem out here. The problem, in my opinion, is how the Muslim community carries itself as a community and as individuals within it towards their Islamic commitments and towards their masajid and towards the work that happens within Muslim da'wah and work. The relationship right now is not a healthy one, and it's not going to get us where we want to go. So we have to kind of The story's not over, and forgive me for going on this long rant. The story's not over. We'll continue the story, inshallah ta'ala, next week. It's a very important story. I take time with it because I think it reflects a lot of important aspects of how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with problems and aspects of how our values as Muslims actually function. We'll continue the story, inshallah ta'ala, next week. So,